Hi everyone, my name is Divya, and thanks to the Change School for inviting me to be a part of this series. I'm originally from New Delhi in India, which is where I grew up, and I went to school and college over there as well. Um, at a very young age, my parents started taking us on a lot of holidays and travels with them. I was very, very fortunate to have that sort of an exposure. So, very often, the summer holidays would be spent in the hill stations, in the Himalayas. Long weekends would go traveling to nearby cities like Agra and Jaipur. Which are steeped in history and culture. And through that, I think I almost got my first taste of what being a global citizen is all about. Because even within India, even though it's one country, it is so many different religions, it is so many different customs, it's so many different ways of being. But still, we transcend that to, talk about being one level higher, and of being Indians first. I went on my first trip away from home when I was just 11 years old, and that was like a 10-day trip to South India with school, which at that time in India was quite a big thing for a girl to be going and doing. So I was very, very lucky to have those opportunities to help shape my thinking and my mindset from a very early age. This perspective grew a lot further when I went away to do my master's, to do my MBA in the UK. And I went to study in Manchester for that. And during this time, I also went to Melbourne to do an exchange program and then back to London to work there for a couple of years. While working in London, I used to try and save as much of my money as possible every month, so that every quarter I could have at least like one vacation away, and travel and explore parts of Europe, because being in London, it was such a great advantage to be able to do that. I moved to Singapore almost 13 years ago when I got married, and this has been home since then. It's been more than 20 years, well, almost 20 years since I left India. And during this time, I've been extremely fortunate to have friends from different nationalities, different age groups, different backgrounds. And what brought all of us together throughout has been that we have had similar interests, of course, similar perspectives on life, similar habits, and of course, our values have also been connected to each other. And that brings me to the topic of this talk today on where do these values come from? Are we born with them? Are they preconditioned in us? Or are we socialized to them? Is it because of what we see within our environment? I actually believe it's a combination of all of these. I think that when we're all born, we all have different personalities, and these different personalities also bring us with different temperaments, which make it easier for us to imbibe certain values versus other values. There are this personality, this nature is further nurtured in the home environment by our parents, our family, our culture, by what we see in school, by our teachers. And then I think these values are also largely influenced by things that we see around us in terms of role models that we try to aspire to be like, in terms of books that we read, and they inspire us tremendously, in terms of experiences that we have in life that make us really think about who we want to be and what we want to do. And it's through all of these that we actually develop these values, and they really become a part of us. But again, like in the story of any global citizen, you can end up moving from one place to another. You can be thrust upon with different choices in your life. And then what happens at these times? How do you choose what is right, what is wrong? How do you decide which are the values that you want to stick on with? For me, over time, there are a couple of things that I have found, which are really, really useful, or rather are my anchor in terms of, trying to see where my values are. And I personally try to align every decision of my life based on my values. I am the same person at home. I'm the same person all the time. I'm the same person at work. I'm the same person at home. I'm the same sort of a person to my parent. It's not that I put on a mask and take off a mask depending upon where I am and who I'm with and what the situation requires. Yes, of course, you have to adapt based on different situations, but at the core, my values stay unchanged no matter which environment you put me into. And how do I work on these values? How do I make sure that these values do carry on staying core to who I am? One of the things which for me has really been a beautiful anchor in the last couple of years has been practicing meditation. I try at least 4 to 5 times a week. The first thing that I do when I wake up in the mornings is I actually sit and I do some pranayam. So I do some yoga breathing exercises. And then after that, I try and spend a couple of minutes to meditate. And I meditate on things which are bothering me, decisions that have to be made, choices that have to be made, and I just work those through internally. I just use my conscience. I, tap on my conscience, because my conscience is where all my values are stored. So I tap on my inner self and on my conscience to give me the strength to make a decision based on the right values. It may not be the easiest solution, but it would definitely be the best in terms of, is it the right solution for that particular point. I also do prayers very regularly. So it's not so much from a religious perspective, but more from doing a gratitude prayer. So I do, every day, thank God for everything that I have. And again, I find that which really helps me to appreciate all that I have when I'm making, tough decisions and when I'm, feeling torn in terms of which way to go. I write a journal from time to time. So at times when I'm finding it the hardest to make a decision, I actually sit down and I write. I just write down my thoughts. I write down why I'm feeling conflicted. I write down about the choices that I have and, which way should I go. So I take that time to introspect. And again, I find that as I write down things just automatically and naturally become a lot clearer for me. And again, it helps me to think about, what my values are. I go back to read. Some of my favorite books. There are books that have helped me through different times of my life, and and in different situations when I find that I'm in a difficult situation, I might just pick up a book that I have read 5 years ago, which has helped me through a tough situation to kind of, use that as an anchor to give me the strength again, and, help me think about what I would like to do and what I should do, and what I shouldn't do. I also engage in some spiritual studies. So I go for some spiritual study classes. I, find that is like a really, really big anchor because, again, you're like with like-minded people, you're with people with similar values, and again, you're using certain study principles and principles of philosophy and principle of spiritual growth to, guide your decisions as well. Finally, I really do believe a lot in talking, so there are times when I do feel I'm very conflicted on values. I would, pick up the phone and talk to like a really dear friend who I know is similarly aligned to me and who can be my conscience at times when even I don't feel like I can be my conscience. My husband is a great person for that. So he's often the person that I, speak to the most about these kind of situations and these decisions that I have to make from time to time. He is the one who can help. And I just find that, talking to somebody, whether it's just over a meal, over a walk, over a glass of wine, just a casual chat, again, it just helps to make sure that what you're doing feels right for you. And it is, genuinely right for you. Volunteering and giving back to society, again, are things that help anchor me in terms of my values and what I believe in. And finally, I think becoming a parent has been one of the things which has really, really helped me in really defining my values. I'm constantly telling my kids what they should do and what they shouldn't do and what's right and what's wrong and how to be a better human being. And as I do that, sometimes it helps to remind me of things in terms of like, are you being the best that you can be, and are you being a good human being? Are you making choices based on right values? Because circumstances around us will constantly change. All the things happening around us will constantly change. A new job will have different demands. A new colleague will have different demands. Moving to a new city would, require you to reinvent yourself, perhaps create new networks, create new support. And I just find that, through this process, through this journey, if I can keep on, remembering for myself, all the things that I teach my kids, it's kind of a second way for me to, keep myself constantly aligned and keep myself constantly connected to my values. So that's it from me. Thank you so much for listening.